Whenever ancient authors like Matthew and Luke describe the birth and childhood of a hero or famous person, where would they go to research and gather data? Would they interview the parents and relatives of the hero, or his childhood friends who knew him? No. In fact, these ancient authors performed no journalistic investigations like we'd imagine. They didn't need to. You see, all ancient authors needed was an image of the adult hero's status and roles. That, and a few factual details, is everything Matthew and Luke would need to construct an account of Jesus' infancy and childhood. This was because such stories were always based on what the hero became as an adult. Now wait a minute, how is that possible? How could you write a biographical story about somebody's infancy and childhood if you don't first confirm your reliable sources and get the facts? That's just it. Matthew chapter 1 and 2 and Luke chapter 1 and 2 are not biographies, folks. Ancient authors were convinced that human personality never changed throughout life. Therefore, to Matthew and Luke, a child was an adult in miniature. Stop thinking of the evangelists as Western authors, mindful of a child's psychological makeup and development, passing through various stages accepted by modern scientific research. They never even considered or imagined anything of that sort. In the cultural world of Jesus, the transition from child to adult was social, not psychological. Thus, when one entered the world of adults, adulthood began. Hence, Mediterranean boys become men when they enter the brutal Mediterranean world of men. Mediterranean girls become women at the wedding transfer, happening just before or at menarche. Note the social nature to these movements. Boys out from the world of women into the harsh male world. Girls out from their father's home into the patriarchal compound of her husband's father. Again, these transitions are social, not psychological. Jesus, although first appearing to everyone as a poor Mediterranean nothing person, a Galilean nothing person, turned out to be a great hero. In other words, he died and became famous. When you die and are risen by God as Messiah, soon to return to inaugurate theocracy from Skyvault, well, that makes you great and famous. The only way an ancient person received a childhood account was if he died and became famous. Otherwise, you wouldn't get one, folks. The Mediterranean cultural world of the Gospels is a world of stereotypes. If you see one Pharisee, you've seen them all. If you see one Nazarene, you've seen them all, and you know that nothing good comes from Nazareth. The evangelists experienced the reality of the risen Lord regularly and routinely in what cognitive neuroscience and anthropologists term altered states of consciousness. They deeply experienced that Jesus had been raised by God indeed, and therefore was great indeed. Therefore, they were understandably too embarrassed of Jesus' Galilean origins in nothing place Nazareth, not to mention his mother's shameful early pregnancy, to invent these facts. To write an account of a great person's childhood required no research, no interviewing parents, no interviewing the people in the village of origin or his childhood friends and acquaintances. Almost all of the information Matthew and Luke needed for this task could be solidly inferred from Jesus' adult behavior. Because everyone knew that a great adult must also have been great in miniature as a child. Whatever great characteristics the hero had as an adult simply must have been there from birth. They would have remained constant throughout the great one's heroic life at all points. This is how ancient Mediterraneans perceived, understood, and communicated reality. The unknown anonymous evangelists we call Matthew and Luke were no different. Was the hero, Jesus of Nazareth, the Messiah, soon to come from God with power? Matthew, Luke, and their audiences would unhesitatingly affirm this. If this significance and greatness was true of the adult Jesus, well, then it must also have been just as true of the infant Jesus. Consequently, since this was so of the risen Jesus, it was quite obvious that his birth and childhood had to be exactly like Matthew and Luke described it. Never mind that both accounts disagree on so many things and irreconcilably contradict each other. Consider all the persons surrounding Jesus at his birth and throughout his childhood in both infancy narratives. Anything said about these people isn't a photograph of how these people actually historically were. These details are included to highlight Jesus as a great one and a hero. These were not provided to flesh out biographically Jesus' relations. Consequently, instead of imagining the infancy narratives as fact-precise biographies, see them as preflections of Jesus, risen Messiah and cosmic Lord. Wasn't it expected that in the last days before God established Israelite theocracy, the kingdom of God, that young men shall see visions and old men shall dream dreams, as Joel chapter 3 verse 1 said? Therefore, Matthew features an old man dreaming dreams. No, he doesn't tell us that Joseph is old, but his readers could infer that he must have been old, given his dreaming. However, Luke must clarify that Zechariah is an old man, because otherwise his audience would imagine him young due to his visions. Note how Matthew and Luke write their infancy narratives according to Mediterranean cultural expectations. So, when God communicates with women, the exchange is limited to female reproductive functions and gender-based roles, like Luke chapter 1, verse 26 through 38. Ladies and gentlemen, an inspired Mediterranean man remains still a Mediterranean man. Folks, these accounts, like the rest of the Gospels and really the whole Bible, were not written for, by, or about 21st century North Americans or Northern Europeans. Therefore, they completely lack our interests and sensibilities and our obsession with facticity. If we are going to taste their good news this Christmas, the first step is reading them respectful of their culture.